Come the next 2 months, Australians will go to the polls, and if the signs of a pending federal election aren't already noticeable, then those who haven't noticed must have been asleep. All Australians need to do is walk the streets and they'll see hoardings and billboards of candidates plastered thick and wide throughout. And if people still need to be convinced that Clayton's electioneering has begun, look through the pages of newspapers and online where tax cuts are now starting to appear as major headlines. Some have to do with the federal upcoming budget to be delivered at the end of the month, but don't be afraid to conflate the two, because the budget will almost launch the government's election campaign. Both Morrison and Albanese have already hit the hustings, with increased media appearances, increase in attending speaking events, even Albanese now being seen more and more in public with partner Jodie Hayden. Morrison is attending flood-affected areas, claims and counterclaims of the former Labor-run government failing to invest in Australia's defence industry. And defence, it seems, is going to be a key election issue, especially with the events in Ukraine and Russia, along with China continuing to eye off Taiwan. The world has become one gigantic geopolitical boiling pot. Just this week, Morrison made announcements which saw him open a Central Coast Clinical School and Research Institute in Gosford, commit $240 million to unlock the potential of Australia's critical minerals sector, supercharge Australia's critical minerals manufacturing sector, commit $13.7 million to support Australia's defence kids, pledge another $38 billion to create 20,000 new jobs in the defence industry by 2040, $4.3 billion for a large ship infrastructure plant in Henderson, WA, and the list goes on. And Albanese, not to be left out, has been attacking Morrison on the cost of living, slamming pension increases, pledging increased defence spending, committing more than 2% of the GDP to defence. The hearts and minds of Australia is a battleground for both parties who are desperate to win the 2020 federal election. This election is an election that could redefine Australia as a nation forever. Because as the world now pivots and balances perilously on a knife's edge, where just like 1963 and the Cuban Missile Crisis, tensions are boiling at an incendiary temperature. And as the world looms from crisis to crisis, Australia has its own crisis, and Australians themselves have a crisis. Our crisis is a crisis of choice, because choice needs to offer new direction, new opportunity, and an actual alternative to what's on offer. But the problem for Australians is there is no alternative. There is no discernible difference, no new direction, no alternative solution, and no genuine leadership. Australia has a severe leadership vacuum, and both Morrison and Albanese don't appear to be the leaders we need. Neither are statesmen, and neither are respected globally. So where to for Australians come election day 2022? And where to for Australia? It seems Australia, with two political parties almost identical in every facet, has increasingly become harder and harder over the years to distinguish between both. Two parties with less than inspiring leadership, mired in controversy and sex and rape allegations, harassment scandals, cultural issues amongst senior female members of the ALP, bullying amongst senior Labor officials. The confidence amongst Australians in who will govern Australia and steer it in the right direction is at an all-time low. Albanese is a wannabe PM. Is he a pretender in waiting? A pretender who may realise his lifelong ambition? And not because he deserves to be Prime Minister, but through Morrison's failures and buffoonery. And that's politics. But it's this type of politics that won't serve Australia well, where Australia will suffer greatly from the inadequacies of its political parties and from the incompetence and lack of depth and talent that exists. Australians of years gone by did have a choice. Political parties were identifiable by the lines between the two. They are now so blurred that the distinction is almost impossible. Whoever Australians choose to vote into office, it will be vanilla ice cream, with the only apparent choice: do you want it in a cup or a cone? In the end, there's no real choice, and the hope for the nation looks bleak and the future grim.